As we seek to advance the cause of the local church in the state of Utah, we have to know where we are, not just in terms of location, but in terms of the times in which we are living. The Utah of today is very different than the Utah of 1989. That is the year that I and my wife, we moved to Utah, and I became the pastor of what is now known as Centerpoint Church in Orem. Regardless of how much things have changed, though, I still believe that the following statement is true. Apostle Russell Ballard made this statement in 2015. He said, "In one sense, the church in Utah is the heart of the worldwide church body. The heart is a muscle which pumps blood through the blood vessels of the circulatory system, providing the body with needed oxygen and nutrients. The saints in Utah help pump gospel truths throughout the entire world, giving the members important spiritual oxygen and essential nutrients." That is true still today, as it was in 1989. But things have changed, and one of the things that has changed is that Utah is no longer as monolithic as it was. In fact, today, rather than talking about Utah, I think it is probably better to talk about the fact that there are several Utahs. I am from Utah Valley, which is still over 80% Latter-day Saint. One reason that we are called Centerpoint is because we are located at the center point of Utah Valley. But the center point of Utah Valley also happens to be the center point of LDS culture. We are 4 miles away from BYU and the Missionary Training Center in Provo, a half mile from UVU, which is the state's largest university, Utah Valley University. Even as you look at Orem and Provo, things, if you move north from Orem and Provo, things have changed. Today, northern Utah Valley is the home to Silicon Slopes, which is a high-tech center where there's a lot of job growth. If you go south of Orem and Provo, South County they're comprised of bedroom communities like Spanish Fork and Springville, where you find a lot of young families. So even within Utah Valley, there are differences, and we draw from all those places. And South County is different than North County, and it's different from Orem and Provo. As you head north on I-15, you enter into Salt Lake County, and the southern and western suburbs of Draper and Riverton, Harriman, Sandy, they are still very LDS, but as you move north towards Salt Lake City, you're going to find a much more diverse population. And when you finally arrive at downtown Salt Lake City, you've found yourself in what we would have to call a liberal enclave. You head east on I-80 and go up to Park City, and you are going to find that Park City, even though it has a Mormon presence, is very much about the mountain lifestyle. You start going into your rural Utah. You have a lot of people with connections to the LDS church, but you're often going to find that the activity levels of people in rural Utah is lower than it would be in a place like Utah Valley. You go up I-15 some more into Ogden, and even you're going to find a strong LDS presence, but you're also going to find Hill Air Force Base, where there are a lot of jobs and there are a lot of people that are moving in and out. You go up to Logan, and you're going to find another university town, Utah State University. But there's also an agricultural center there, and but still a strong Mormon presence. South in St. George, again, strong ties to the LDS church, but also a growing retirement community along with a growing university, Dixie State. So you have all these Utahs, and it's just a cursory glance at them. And as I talk to church planters, one of the things that I encourage is to study Utah and to study these different Utahs and make a decision about where you want to go based upon the way you feel like the Lord has gifted you, understanding who it is you feel like you are best able to reach, and what would be the best fit for ministry for you and your family. And then I would add that where also is the greatest need. There are challenges and opportunities everywhere. I look in our valley. I'll just give you some examples. Vineyard, Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain. These are brand new communities with a lot of new homes. Things are growing in those places. And anytime you have a growing environment where there are lots of new homes, I believe that there are opportunities for church planting. Now, I believe that any place can be a great place. When we came to Orem 30 years ago, people thought we were out of our minds to go there, and it's worked out. But there are places that are going to be more challenging than other places. Down by BYU, for example, Provo. You have to go in there recognizing that many of the people that are there because of BYU. They're either employed there or they're students there. And if they leave the LDS church and they end up going to a church like yours, they're not going to be able to stay employed, or they will not be able to remain as students for very long. So you have to take those kinds of things into account. That's just a dynamic that is different in the state of Utah. So understand where the place in Utah that would be the best fit for you. I think it's also important to understand the times in which we live in Utah. I'm not going to throw a lot of numbers at you, but I can say that when we arrived in 1989, there was a sense of confidence among the members of the LDS church that I would talk to of almost this manifest destiny regarding the LDS church and its future. I remember hearing a city official from Provo talk at one time in the early 90s about what the world would look like in the year 2010 when the LDS church had 35 million members. Well, that has not happened. Over a 30-year period, we have seen this change. In 1989, when we got here, it didn't seem like anybody was leaving the LDS church. And today, there are lots of people leaving. And this is not just our experience as a local church. I'm hearing this from pastors throughout the state of Utah. And to get an idea of how much has changed, recently I went and gave a presentation at one of the local high schools about evangelical Christianity. And I began the session by talking to them and asking them about their plans for when they graduate from high school. My experience has been that the vast majority of at least guys are planning on serving missions for the LDS church. And so I expected that. And even if they're not planning on serving missions for the LDS church, they will act like they are because it is the socially acceptable thing to do. Well, I finally asked these kids, I said, how many of you are, when I said, how many of you kids are planning on serving a mission for the LDS church? Out of a class of over 30, I only had 7 raise their hands. And I thought, what a change. Years ago, you would have had a large percentage raising their hands. And today, my sense was that they weren't exactly excited about raising their hands, and that it is no longer the thing to do to serve a mission in the church. And I looked at that and I thought, something has changed within the culture. So we are experiencing this phenomenon where people are leaving the LDS church, and many of them are showing up on Sundays to our churches, and we have an opportunity. And how are we going to approach that opportunity as local churches? That's the challenge that is before us in the coming years.